So far we've focused very much on the word disabled. To conclude this series of lectures on this topic, let's now look at another word, one which is obviously much more overtly offensive, the word cripple. I'm going to look at it now in the UK disability corpus. Of course, the word can occur both as a noun and a verb, but actually the word doesn't occur as frequently as disabled, so in this case we're able to analyse all examples of it rather than thin out the sample as I did in the previous segment when I looked at the word disabled. The noun contains a number of subcategories: human, physical, so for example one of them, a cripple, lay slumped on the floor. Human, emotional, social, the emotional cripple who was nearly expelled from Cambridge. There are also non-humans who are referred to as a cripple of a horse. In terms of the verb, there are the following subcategories. Again, human physical. Jogging might cripple pensioners with arthritis and orthopedic injuries. Non-human physical. Cruel snares which catch and cripple the animal. And non-human metaphorical. The extra cost could cripple firms just when they are trying to survive the recession. And as usual, we have a sort of dustbin category, in this case typically for proper names, especially from North America, like cripple creep or cripple crow. So what do we find? Well, as you can see on this table, we find quite a complex picture. In this case, we can't simply go to the bottom of the table and say, well, look, there's the lowest proportion of uses of this word. That's not true. So say, for example, if we look at human physical, 2012, well, we have 11.76% of all examples there, as opposed to 2011 when we had 8.4. And if you look up the column, you'll see that the numbers are bouncing around a little bit more. So let's do something slightly different. Let's look where the most frequent uses of this are in terms of the year, or where the greatest proportion of examples can be placed in terms of years. So 2006 sees the peak of usage of the human physical category for nouns. For noun human emotional categories, it's 2005. For verb human physical, it's 2009. And for verb non-human metaphorical, it's 2011. So that starts to show us, I think, the clearer picture. The noun human physical, noun human emotional, and verb human physical seem to be in slow, if bumpy, decline. And in fact, when you look at something like noun human emotional social, the proportions are very low and the numbers are very low also in 2012. By comparison, the non-human metaphorical verbal usage of the word cripple is increasing over time. Although it's down a little in 2012, it's still up very markedly on 2005, if we judge these proportions of use that we can put in each year as an indicator of that. So that allows us to start to draw some potential conclusions. Firstly, British journalists, and remember that's what we're looking at here, are less and less likely to use the word cripple to describe people or the actions that happen to seriously injure them. It could well be the case that sensitivity around the Paralympics might be changing the acceptability of the word cripple. Even metaphorical uses like the extra cost could cripple firms. Yet generally speaking, we could certainly start to argue that the use of the word cripple to refer to physical disability seems potentially to be on its way towards the history books for British English. We're using it less and less often to refer to humans, but we still seem to be able to use it to describe non-human items in a metaphorical way as being crippled. So let me just draw a few brief conclusions to conclude this particular segment of the lecture. I think hopefully what you've seen in the previous segments has shown you that this is a useful demonstration of how corpus linguistics can address questions of interest to policymakers. We did this research for the Department of Culture, Media and Sport in the UK, who were interested in the questions that we were looking at in it. Also, of course, a lot of the work that we did reflected on work done by the Office for Disability also. So the corpus can interface us with society. It might therefore become a lens through which society may be viewed. And some of the other talks that you can listen to this week, I think, return to and hopefully demonstrate that point again. But of course, I'd always say much more work needs to be done, and indeed in many more languages. I've just looked at British and American English here with a smattering of other Englishes in the global media disability corpus. But of course, it might be interesting to do more focused comparisons, say, of British English with other varieties of English other than American English, and also to look at these words and other such words in other languages. Notably, for example, it might be interesting to see how hosting the Paralympics in 2008 may or may not have had an effect on the way disabled people are constructed in the Chinese language.